Hello everybody, in today's video we are going to be looking at how to install and use Zorin OS. This is a type of distro that I would recommend to people that are coming over from Windows 10. If you have a computer that is, 2, 3, 4 years old, I'd highly recommend checking out Zorin OS, and that is what we are going to do today because they did do a new release, Zorin OS 18, which comes with a bunch of new appearance changes to their desktop, a newer desktop version that is on it, and of course like a newer kernel, newer drivers, and some more little tweaks that just make the desktop or the distro just way better for the end user. So like I said in the beginning, who is this distro really for? Well, I would say that it is a replacement from Windows 10 or even Windows 11 users that want to come over and try Linux out for the first time, and they have an older-ish computer, let's say 2-3 years ago, because this distro is an LTS distro. So that does mean that you're gonna have to wait quite a while to get newer packages, and that means that this distro is also behind on updates. So if you have a computer that is brand new, it may work. If it's NVIDIA, it probably will work because of the proprietary drivers, but if you're on AMD or Intel, most likely it probably will boot, but you may experience other problems when trying to play games and such. So I wouldn't recommend this distro if you're on the brand newest hardware, like you just built a whole new computer and you want to install Linux. I would be looking at something like Fedora or maybe some Arch-based distros, even though that may be a little bit complicated. Something like Gasiyu is an alright distro, but Zorin OS is, as you can see, is an appealing distro. One of the things that I really like about Zorin OS is their design and marketing. It is very, very nice. Whoever is the marketing team, design team at Zorin OS, you do a fantastic job, I would say. And the person who made this website did a fantastic job. It shows off the desktop really well, shows what it could be, I guess, make your computer better, faster, easier, and more powerful. It says Zorin OS is an alternative to Windows and macOS designed to make your computer faster, more powerful, secure, and privacy respecting, which I guess is pretty damn true. And it does say here that ready, set, game. Play an enormous library of your favorite games, whether they're AAA titles or indie games. Install native Linux and Windows games from Steam, Lutris, and other sources. Zorin OS comes with NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel graphics drivers, as well as game optimizations, so you can get great performance easily. I don't know what they're necessarily talking about when it comes to game optimizations. If they're using some type of scheduler that makes it better, I don't really know. But like I said, you definitely can play games on it. If you're using something like Flatpak, which I'll talk about soon, you can get better compatibility out of your GPU that you have on your system. And there is another application called Zorin Connect, which is literally the exact same, I would say, as the KDE Connect application. It even detects my main machine, which is running Gasiyu OS on the Zorin Connect application. I can pair it if I wanted to. But this app is really good. It allows you to like transfer files, photos, control the media that you're playing on the computer, get notifications and messages, even control your mouse and keyboard from the desktop or do remote presentations as well. You're able to really do it all with that application. So the first thing is, how do you install it? Well, we're going to click on download Zorin OS or download up here. We'll click download Zorin OS, and there is two choices or three choices to choose from. There is Zorin OS Pro, which does cost for me 78 Australian dollars, which it does say here that it bundles with alternatives to over $5,000 worth of professional software. So when it comes to, if you're someone who likes to do a lot of creative work and you want to move over to Linux to alternative software that is like paid production software, I think the Pro version would probably be the best one if you're in that type of industry. If you're just like a freelancer or something, I'd probably stay away from this unless you really want that professional software. And you also do get technical support for installing Zorinos if you need help, and you do of course contribute to maintaining and the development of Zorinos, because this is a free and open source operating system. And on top of that, you do get 8 premium desktop layouts. So you get a Mac OS layout, a Windows 11 and classic layout, a Chrome OS layout, and more, plus standard layouts which are in the normal version of Zorinos. But of course, you can just install GNOME extensions, because that is the desktop environment that Zorinos is using, and you can just use a thing called extensions and customize it yourself and basically make the same exact layout. But if you don't want to go around all those types of things, then maybe the Pro version is for you. But there is the core version, which is what we are going to install, and the education version. So if you are looking to install Zorinos on school laptops, school computers, I'd highly recommend looking into Zorinos, because, well, the good thing about Zorinos is that since it's LTS, it does not get feature updates constantly, and it only gets security updates. It's rather slow, I would say, when it comes to the feature stuff. So you're going to be waiting like 2 to 3 years for a new feature release. So it's really good for school laptops, school computers, all of that. So we're just going to download the core version, because we are just looking to install this on a desktop computer. So now that we have the ISO downloading, the next thing that we need to do is grab a flashing tool. There is lots of different flashing tools available, but the most popular one that everyone likes to recommend when it comes to if you're on Windows and Mac is Balena Etcher. Balena Etcher is awesome when it comes to just flashing an image on a USB stick or some type of drive, and then using it to boot into that live environment to install something like Linux or maybe even Windows and other operating systems. So when it comes to installing Balena Etcher, I'll leave this in the link of the description, where you can just click on the download for the operating system that you are using. For me, we are using Linux, so we're just going to download the zip file. So now that we have Balena Etcher opened, we are going to select the ISO that we have downloaded. So as you can see here, we have Zorinos 18 core. So I'm going to select the ISO and then select the target, which is going to be our USB stick. So as we can see here, we are going to select this USB stick that we have plugged in. We're going to select, and we're going to click flash. We're going to type in our password to give it permission so that I can actually flash it to the USB stick. And now basically this part is pretty simple. Just let it flash the ISO onto the USB stick, go grab a coffee, eat some food, maybe go for a walk or something, and come back until it is done finishing the flashing procedure. Now, the next thing after it's done flashing to the USB stick is we're going to need to boot into our bootloader to choose the USB so we can actually boot into the live environment. So this is different depending on the computer that you have. For me, I have a Gigabyte motherboard. It's a custom PC. So my Gigabyte motherboard is the delete key to actually get into the BIOS, but we are going to go to the bootloader, which is F12. So you can either do the BIOS way or the bootloader way. We're going to do the bootloader way because that is just, I would say, simpler. You can just select the USB stick to boot into, and then it will just boot into it straight away. Instead of having to go into the BIOS, change the bootloader order, and then save it. This way, I would say, is a little bit easier. So again, this depends on the computer that you have. If you have like a pre-built computer, like let's say it's an Acer or an Asus, you need to figure out the bootloader boot key for that system. So now that we've figured out how to get into our bootloader on our computer and we've flashed the ISO to a USB stick, the next thing we have to do is, well, turn on the computer and start spamming the key to actually enter the bootloader so we can select the USB to actually boot into the live environment so we can install the operating system on the computer. So if I turn on my computer and we start spamming F12, and here's the splash screen. It says boot menu F12, and we're going to select the Toshiba USB stick, which you can see right there. So I'm going to click enter, and then it's going to come up and say try or install Zorin OS. We can either choose the normal one, so if you're on AMD or Intel, you need to choose that first one. If let's say you're on older hardware, like really old hardware, like 10 years old or something, try out the safe graphics mode, just so maybe if you try the first one, maybe there'll be an issue, and so choosing the safe graphics might be a better option, so at least you can actually get into the installer, install it properly, and then you're actually able to boot into it, instead of having to have all these random issues that might happen if you're on that older hardware. And then there is a NVIDIA option, so if you want to have pre-installed NVIDIA drivers, the proprietary ones, pre-installed on the Zorinos, when you boot into it after installing, it will install all that for you, and you'll get the NVIDIA drivers just, pre-installed. So for me, I am on a full AMD system, so I'm just going to choose the regular one. And we now need to wait for it to boot into the actual live environment with the installer. And if you do have any issues at this point, I would definitely comment down below. It could be possible that on your BIOS, you might have something like secure boot enabled, and that might muck up the distro because lots of Linux distros don't use secure boot. It's got to do with Microsoft keys, and that's just a bit complicated. Even though you can do it on Linux, it might cause issues. So if you are up to this point and for some reason you have an error, definitely comment down below and we can see if we can actually help you or not. As you can see here, we are now booted into the Zorinos installer. So there'll be two options when this installer pops up. You can either do try Zorinos or install Zorinos. So if you are hesitant with using Zorinos, like the desktop environment, what it looks like, how it feels, I would definitely try Zorinos first, and that will kick you into an actual live environment where you can try it. So for me, I'm going to select install Zorinos because I already know what the layout looks like, and I'll show it off in the video for everyone, just in case if someone is still hesitant on installing it. So the first thing was going to go through the keyboard layout. So I'm going to select Australia for the English keyboard layout. We're going to click continue. We're going to select download updates while installing Zorinos, so then when it boots, it has everything installed and it's all up to date. And then we're also going to keep the tick for install third-party software for graphics and Wi-Fi hardware and additional media formats, so that everything when it comes to proprietary stuff does work out of the box on this distro. And there is a button here that says don't participate in census, which is Zorinos' developers count the number of users anonymously. So if you don't want to be counted, you want to have more, I guess, privacy with this distro, don't want to be counted on those types of charts or anything, definitely click this and you will not be tracked when it comes to the number of users that are using Zorinos. Then if you are doing a dual boot, for example, a lot of these Ubuntu style distros do support the alongside a Windows boot manager option. So you can do a dual boot if you want to. So if you have Windows on one SSD and you want to install Zorinos on the same SSD, that Windows is installed on, it can do that for you. Now, if you don't want that, let's say you want to install Zorinos on a separate SSD, then I would do erase disk and install Zorinos instead. And of course, if you're doing a fresh install, well, you just do erase disk and install Zorinos as well. And you can do something else as well, which is manual partitioning. So if you're into that, you can definitely go wild and do all that. But we're going to choose erase disk and install Zorinos on a spare SSD that I have, which we're going to select this one, this 128GB one. We're going to click install now. And it's going to show you the changes it's going to make to that disk. I'm going to click continue. Then it's going to ask you, where are you? So I'm going to select Melbourne, even though that's not really where I live, but it's just a general location so it knows things like the time zone to set correctly, all of those things. And then the next thing we're going to do is set up the username, which will create the computer's name as well, and then the password. So you can see here, I've typed in Linux Next, it's going to create the computer name and it's going to pick a username. Then we're going to create the password, and this is a local account. It is not an online account that is connected to anything. Fully local, so if you're expecting to use this for connecting different accounts or something, that is not how Linux works. We don't have online accounts with an operating system, it's all just a local user account. And there we go. So now it is going to install Zorinos 18. We can look at the log here of what it's doing, but we're going to now, I guess, grab another coffee or go for another walk or just do something, because this may take a while depending on the computer hardware that you have. So as you can see here, we are now booted into the main install of Zorinos 18. The first window that appears is welcome to Zorinos. It says, hi there, take the tour to learn your way around and discover essential features. So if we click on start tour, it will say open the menu to launch apps. You can search here for apps and find shortcuts to common locations in the menus. We click up here. Whoa! We can look at the menu to launch different applications. You can go home, desktop, documents, like all your files. You can launch the software store, settings, this is your own appearance. You can go per category, so accessories, graphics, internet. And when you install applications, they will all be put into these categories depending on what the application is. Then it says choose your desktop look with Zorin appearance. Select a different layout for your desktop and change its visual style. So if we do launch the Zorin appearance, we can change the layout to something that you personally like. So they do have 4 layouts to choose from on the default core version of Zorinos. If you've chosen the pro version, you would have a lot more choices to choose from, but these layouts are pretty good enough, I would say. For me, I like the default one, but we can have a look at the other one. So here's what this one looks like. A little bit different. This one, which is more similar to the GNOME layout. And then we have this one, which is really traditional to the GNOME layout. So the dock is, I can see it's behind. We select this, we got the application launcher library. That is basically the default GNOME look that you'll have if you install something like Fedora, for example. But Zorinos uses the this appearance, which is more Windows-esque, I would say. Very, very similar to Windows. Then we got the theme here, so we can choose either light, automatics, or switch between it, or just dark theme. So we're going to select the dark theme because, well, I like having a dark layout, setup, theme. We can choose the accent color as well, and we can click on other if we want to start customizing things. So if we want to change the icon pack, the applications in the cursor or the shell, you can do that. And it does say here, you can click on how to install third-party themes if you want to go down that route. Then there is the effects option. So by default, it will have some animations like these zoom animations and all that. Very simple, but we can enable the jelly mode if you want to have windows that do this weird jelly animation. It is pretty cool. I remember when I used Zorinos, I always had the jelly mode on because it looked really cool. You can also do the desktop cube. And if I do enable the desktop cube in the spatial window switcher, like with Alt Tab, you can see here, this is what basically the cube effect looks like. I think it's pretty damn cool. I've never used this type of thing before, but it is pretty awesome. Then we have the desktop area, so we can enable icons on desktop. So if it creates a shortcut, it's going to appear on the desktop. You can do the adjustment for the background. You can make it a none, wallpaper, centered, scale, stretch, zoom, span, the icon size for the created shortcuts, and you can show the home folder, the trash, mounted volumes in the network servers. Then if we look through the windows here, we can look at the placement of when these windows spawn. So new window placement is always going to be centered, or it can be spread. And we also can customize the window title bars, which is up here. So we can change it to be left or right. And then we can also do double click to toggle maximize, minimize, menu, or none. Middle click, same thing. We got the same options, and same with the secondary click. And then we got the focus. So we got click to focus or focus on hover. So if I click focus on hover, it focuses on the application in behind. Click back, it focuses on the Zorin appearance. And then we can change the interface as well. So we got left super key. We can activate the overview, which if I do that, there you go. That's what it looks like. Or we can do the Zorin menu, which is probably what I personally would use because I'm used to that with like KD Plasma desktop. If you don't like that, you can just leave it on the overview option. And it also can do display activities overview on startup, which I have seen that before on the GNOME desktop. You can do that. And then overlay scroll bars, applications need to be restarted for changes to take effect. You also can enable the on-screen keyboard button and it'll place it in the panel, as you can see right down here. We can whip up the keyboard if we want to do some on-screen keyboard stuff. And then we can go to the taskbar settings if we want to start customizing the actual taskbar itself. And then the last one is fonts. So you can change the fonts to a wide range and size to whatever font that you like. And there's so many different fonts pre-installed on Zorinos that you can choose literally anything, I would say. But for me, I'll leave it on the default. So if we continue on with the welcome application, we click on next, it says you can connect your online accounts, sync your accounts to easily access your online calendar, documents, photos, and more. So if you do have anything like those online accounts, calendar, documents, photos, if you click on connect online accounts, we can connect a wide range of different accounts, either be Google, Microsoft 365 plus OneDrive, Nextcloud, Microsoft Exchange, email, calendar and contacts and files, or an enterprise login. So you can really choose a lot of things. Then the next one is link your phone and computer with Zorin Connect. So if we do launch Zorin Connect here, it says connect your computer with your mobile device, sync your phones and notifications with your computer, browse photos from your phone, reply to SMS messages, share files and web links between devices, use your phone as a remote control for your computer. So we click on next here. It says here that we need to grab the application either from Google Play or F-Droid if you're on a de-Googled phone. So for me, I am on a de-Googled phone. I am using F-Droid. I already have the application installed, and it does already discover the OnePlus 12R, which is the phone that I am currently using, which has Lineage OS on it with de-Google, just F-Droid and Aurora Store. As you can see here on my phone, it's already discovered the computer. So if we do select it, we do request pairing. It says here, oh my God, pair request from OnePlus 12R. We click accept, and then it is now connected, as you can see on the application. And on the app, we do have a wide range of choices to choose from. As we can see here, we got presentation remote, send files, multimedia control, remote input, run command, or send clipboard. And then we also do need to, if you want to do file system stuff like file transfer, you need to expose the file system on your Android device so that you can actually transfer files across the computer. So pretty damn awesome. I do use this on my KD Plasma desktop because they have an application called KD Connect, which is the exact same application. And it's really simple when it comes to just pairing it, sending files, really easy. Then it also says use software to find and install apps. So if you do click on launch software, it is going to launch the GNOME software GUI store. And as you can see, there is a wide range of applications. And when it comes to grabbing applications on Zorinos, this is where the main place for grabbing applications will be. I think it's always the first choice whenever you want to find an application before you go onto your browser. I know if you're like a Windows user, you may be like, why do I have to do that? Well, it is just the main way of installing applications on Linux, I would say. You grab your applications from the repo of the distro, so Zorinos, and then you also do have Flatpak, and Zorinos does include snap packages as well. And I would say this is really a lot more easier than having to go to your browser and grab a bunch of random .exes that you have to install on the computer. You can simply search up an application. So for example, if we want to install Steam, we simply search Steam, and then as you can see, there is Steam. And then one of the things that we need to know about is Flatpak. Now, Flatpak is really good when it comes to the majority of GUI applications on the Linux desktop. But the problem with Flatpak is that it's containerized. Now, that's not necessarily a problem, but the problem is if you install Steam via Flatpak, you might have issues encountered where you're trying to add an extra drive that has a bunch of games installed on it. And Steam will not be able to see it because of Flatpak not being able to look at it properly. So the option is that you need to install the APT or the Debian version of Steam, which you can see right here, Zorinos option, which grabs it from the Zorinos repos. And we want to install this version of Steam, which will allow you to add extra drives, and many other things will just work properly. Things like VR, for example, will also work properly if you want to do that on Zorinos. So we just type in our password here, and then it will install the installer, which this installer is literally just a wrapper that just grabs the .debian binary and then installs it on your computer. So if we continue on with the welcome application, we click next. It says, that's it. We hope that you enjoy Zorin OS. To get more advice and tips, see the help page on our website. So if you want help, you can go to the help page, which comes up right over here, and you can look through everything. If you're looking to switch your organization from Windows to Zorin OS, you can do that. If you want to look at the system requirements, you can have a look at that. When it comes to hardware, activating NVIDIA graphics, which if you did the install with NVIDIA, it should already be pre-installed. And things like Wi-Fi, playing games, all those things should be all there for you so that you can get the help that is required. And if you don't still have some issue, you can look at the forum, or you can actually request support also. Now, when it comes to what is new in Zorin OS 18, well, of course, this is a new feature release of Zorin. So they have a newer version of the GNOME desktop that they are using. As you can see, it is a customized version of GNOME. They do have a new look here, and that's mostly because of that newer GNOME version that is out that they had to rebase on, which is GNOME 46. So this version of GNOME is 18 months behind what the newest GNOME version is available, which is GNOME 49 currently. So you do miss out on some features, like for example, if you want to have VRR or if you want to have HDR, those things are not included in this distro because it is running off a Ubuntu base that is roughly 18 months behind when it comes to the GNOME version that they are using. So if you do want those features, for example, and you do want to use the GNOME desktop, you will need to install a newer distro like Fedora Workstation, for example, or maybe OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. Those are two distros that will include the newest version of GNOME, and they will have those features available. But if you don't want to install those distros and you want to keep using Zorin OS, I would say, well, you're going to have to wait until the new feature release, which is roughly 2 years away-ish. So you got a while to wait until you get those newer features. One of the other new features that they decided to introduce is a type of tiling mode in Zorin OS. Now, this isn't like automatic tiling, but it is kind of similar to, I guess you could say, Windows tiling. So you can see here, there's a bar at the top of my desktop. If I go up here, it shows some UI for how you want this app to be tiled. So let's say we want to put this one up here. Okay, there we go. Let's launch the file manager, pull the thing again. We can put this down here. Let's say the terminal, for example. We do this again, we can put it here. There you go. We have a type of tiling setup. It's not like cosmic tiling or any type of tiling manager like Hyperland or Sway or something where it does that automatic tiling, but it is good enough, I would say, to dip your toes into tiling. And I think this is very similar to the way Windows does it, or something like Kitty Plasma of how they do tiling. Now, one thing, if you do notice, is that Zorin OS is using the Brave browser now. Before, I'm pretty sure they were using Firefox, if I'm not mistaken, and they've switched, or it was Chrome, either one. I can't really remember, but Brave is the default now. Now, personally, a lot of people like Brave, but for me, I kind of despise Brave, and it's because it's a corporate company that has been in some interesting waters with like crypto and just other things that I just don't really want to be involved with a browser. So personally, if I'm going to use Zorin OS, I'm going to switch to LibreWolf because that is just a more privacy-friendly browser in my opinion, and it's Firefox based. I prefer Firefox browsers, even though they may be technically slower than Chrome. I would say it's pretty much up to par with Chrome nowadays, and I don't use things like HDR, so LibreWolf is good for me. But if you are someone that uses Brave as the default browser, you'll be happy because it is pre-installed as the default browser on Zorin OS. Now, if you are someone that is into using web applications as the way that you do things when it comes to productivity applications, or you do office work through web applications, well, you'll be happy to know that Zorin OS does support seamless integration with web applications. So let's say you have, I don't know, you want to use the Photoshop web version from Adobe, or you want to use the Microsoft suite applications. Well, you can click on the plus here, create a name, create a description, show the address of where that web application is. It will try and grab the application for you. You can click on find icons online if you want to actually grab the right application, but I'm pretty sure it should grab it automatically for you. The category, so if it's web, you can just leave it as web. If it's, let's say, graphics design, so like it's a Photoshop or it's I don't know, some other web application that's got to do with graphics design or drawing or something, you would select graphics. And then the browser, so the default is Brave, so it's going to be selected as that. And it also can be set as an isolated profile, which means that it's going to basically be a separate browser with its own login. It's not going to be connected to your main web browser. It'll be isolated from that. So if you don't want that and you want it to be the same as your normal browser, you can actually disable this and it will just be the same as the Brave browser that you have currently. Now, one thing that Zorinos has tried to improve on in this version of Zorinos 18 is about trying to support a user that is trying to install .exes or .msis, basically Windows executables on a Linux system, because many users may think that downloading a .exe is the correct way of installing an application on Linux when it is not the correct way of doing it, because while Linux uses different executables and different package formats, what it tries to do is if you download, let's say, a .exe like Ubisoft Connect or Balena Etcher, two examples that I have here. If I click on Ubisoft Connect, it is going to say Lutris can be installed from software. Lutris is an alternative to Ubisoft Connect. Ubisoft Connect installer.exe is an unknown Windows app. Your computer and personal data may be vulnerable to a breach when you're running apps from unknown sources. Some Windows apps may not be compatible with Windows app support. So what it will do is it has two choices here. You can either install Lutris, which is a wine game manager, which allows you to install Ubisoft Connect, or you can install Windows app support, which I'm pretty sure installs bottles as the alternative, and it tries to use like Proton to try and get this stuff running properly. And the same goes if I launch the Balena Etcher.exe. It says here you can download Balena Etcher.zip 64-bit package for Linux from Zorinos from the web. So basically it's saying, hey, you downloaded the wrong executable for your system. You're not on Windows. You need to download the Linux version for Balena Etcher. So it says here, launch Balena Etcher website, and it's going to direct us right to the download page. And they have said that they've tried to support over 170 applications that a person might try to download, let's say some type of .exe, and give them an alternative that is supported on Linux. So that's really good for people that don't know that there is other alternatives available for either running these Windows applications or alternatives when it comes to maybe like graphics design or something. Like it goes, you try to launch the Photoshop, for example, .exe, and it's like, hey, you can use Krita or GIMP as an alternative. And some of the other things that have been enabled in Zorinos, if we do bring this over here, is enhanced audio. So in Zorinos 18, they have finally switched over to Pipewire, which is freaking awesome. Before they were using Pulse Audio, and Pulse Audio, isn't really being used anymore as the default audio backend. The majority of Linux distros have switched over to using Pipewire and then using something like Wire Plumber, which is the way to handle the actual Pipewire nodes. And this just brings everyday usage of different audio devices, or if you're into music production, or if you're into playing games, all of that stuff should just work out of the box, and it will also provide really nice low latency. And some other things is like the backgrounds. There is some new backgrounds here. Personally, I like this one, which I'm pretty sure is from Mac, I think, if I had to guess. I swear I've seen this in macOS before. Another one looks pretty nice. Looks pretty nice. Looks alright. Looks pretty. Looks okay. Looks okay. Looks alright. They all look alright. They're all really nice wallpapers, I would say. And there is many other things that have been updated. Like, of course, there's better performance with, updating to a new Linux Ubuntu base with a newer GNOME desktop. There's always going to be like that newer kernel, newer graphics drivers. Everything just becomes a little bit more faster and better supported with that newer hardware. And another thing that I thought that was pretty funny is the Zorin menu. We've added multi-monitor support for when the panel is visible on one more than one display, and refine the menu's touchscreen behavior. So if that's the case, when you're using the desktop, that is now supported properly. And there is also the remote login with RDP. This is because thanks to the GNOME desktop actually, bringing the remote desktop support within the Wayland desktop, so you can actually do that. I do personally use this on my Debian server, and it works perfectly fine, even though the computer's from 2013. It does indeed work. So now it's actually time to set up the computer a little bit more when it comes to how would I set up the computer when it comes to mounted drives, or setting up Steam, or setting up games that are outside of Steam, just doing all those little things. So the first thing I would say is mounted drives. I have 2 mounted drives that I use that have a bunch of games installed on it. How do we get these mounted properly on the system so that Steam can actually read and write to it? And then of course making it the correct partition. So if you have a drive that has games on it and it's under NTFS on Windows, you are going to need to format this to ext4 if you want to play games on Linux under Proton. So on Zorin OS, we can launch the GNOME disk application, which is just called disks. So if we do launch this here, we do have the 2 SSDs here. What we can do is click on the little settings icon, edit mount option, turn off the user session default. We want to leave these 2 ticked here. And then what we're going to do is launch our file manager, go to home, and then I'm going to create a folder called drives, which I'm going to capitalize the D as well. And then I'm going to create another folder and call it games. And then I'm going to create another folder and call it extra files. And then what we're going to do is change the mount point to that location for this SSD. So this one would be the extra games mounted drive, or extra files is what I've called it. And as you can see, this is the path for extra files. So we're just going to copy this path, and all we have to do is click on this and go properties, like right click and then click properties. And then we're going to add extra files on the end of that, so that's actually the correct mount point. And there you go. So now every time when we reboot the system, it's going to mount in that location. And then we can also change the identifier. So if we want to change it to make it a little bit easier, we can just change it to like label extra games so that it's just easier. We can also add a display name. So if you don't want to see just the random like label that it gives it, we can call it like extra games, for example. And then one thing that we're going to add to the options here is exec. Now, what does exec actually do? Well, exec stands for execute, which means that applications that want to execute something with like a read and write, for example, one example is Steam, and it's really the only example because Steam for some reason just doesn't want to read and write on the drive for some reason, and it won't discover the Steam library that I have. So I have to add the exec on the end of here. So now the first one is done. We click OK, we type in our password, and then when we reboot our computer, it is going to auto mount it into that file location. And then we're going to do the same. We're going to go on the other one, the CT one. We're going to click on the settings, click on edit mount options, disable the session default. We're going to add the exec onto the end of it, change the display name to just games, for example. And then we're going to, again, properties on the games folder, copy the file path, and then paste it in the mount option, and then do the end of the actual folder that we want the drive to be mounted in. So then that's basically it. We click OK, do the password again. And then if we reboot our computer, we can actually use these drives, which I'll do right now. So now that we have the drives actually mounted after rebooting the computer, you can see here they are mounted properly. The games and extra games folders that we created, they are being mounted properly in it. Now what we're going to do is set up Steam. The problem for me though is when I try and install and launch the system package version of Steam, it doesn't launch properly on my hardware. I can show you an example right now if we do reinstall it. Okay, so here is the problem that I'm going to show to everyone right now. When I try to launch the system package of Steam, for some reason, if I use the shortcut for launching Steam, right? Let's type in Steam, there it is. Let's launch it and let's see what happens. So here we go. And the store doesn't appear. Instead, what happens is it just keeps kind of doing this little like blinking thing of like the window. There you go, it just happened. And it just does this forever until I close it. And you can see it creates an applet down here. So it is launched in the background. It is working technically, but the Steam library store isn't appearing. But if I close this and then we launch it through the Steam installer on the GNOME software page, right? Click open. Logging in, loading. Oh, would you look at that? Steam works perfectly fine if you do it through the Steam installer, but if you do it through the Steam shortcut, it doesn't want to load properly for some reason. Why? I have no freaking clue. Personally, that is a pretty big problem, I would say. I don't know if anyone else experiences this problem, but it's just an experience that I have just happened before when I've just tried to set up Steam. So my solution, if I want to launch through the shortcut, I'm just going to use the Flatpak one. So click install on the Flatpak one if you have this issue, unless you want to deal with launching the GNOME software store and then clicking open on the Steam installer every time if you want to launch Steam instead of just launching it through the normal shortcut. And of course, when you install the Flatpak version of Steam, you do have to deal with the permission side of Flatpak because again, Flatpak is containerized. So what you have to do is install an application like Flatseal. This allows you to give permission with certain mounted drives so that when you launch Steam, you can actually add the Steam library. So here is Flatseal here. You can click install. When you click open, you can find Steam here. And you notice how the cursor isn't working properly. It's bigger than my normal cursor size. Don't know why it's doing that. It doesn't happen on my CachyOS install, probably because maybe Zorinos is a little bit out of date when it comes to the GNOME version. So that problem that is still relevant. But besides that, click on Steam, scroll down to File Systems, and then we want to add the mounted drive path of like what we did with mounting the drive in the partition manager. So for me, my drives are in /home/linuxnext, which you would replace this with your username, /drives with a capital D, and then /games with a capital G. And then the same goes with the extra games. And then you reopen Steam, and then when we launch Steam, then, like I said, when we reopen Steam and we go to our settings, we go to storage and we click on add a drive, you can ignore this folder's contents not being displayed properly. We can go to other locations and then we can select the Steam library folder and then it will be added as a local drive, as you can see. And now my games are detected properly and we can start playing games on Steam. So Proton is enabled by default, so you don't have to do anything when it comes to using, like having to enable Proton to play games. You should be able to just click play on a game, and if the game doesn't work properly for some reason, and it's not using any type of anti-cheat that is purposely blocking Linux, you want a properties on the game. Compatibility, force the use of a specific Steam Play compatibility tool and select Proton Experimental or Proton 10 when that is released if you want to use that version. But Proton Experimental is the latest version of Proton. So it has the latest patches, meaning you'll get the best compatibility out of the majority of games that you are going to play on Steam. So for example, the finals, this is supported on Linux. Embark does work with Valve and Codeweavers who maintain Wine. They test different builds to make sure that before an update comes out, the game still does work properly on the Linux system unofficially. And as you can see here, we are now in the game and it runs perfectly fine. I'm getting around 160, 70, 80 FPS, which is pretty good. But for me personally, I probably wouldn't use this distro for things like playing the finals because you are missing out on features like VRR and you are missing out on features like screen tearing under the Wayland session, which Zorinos doesn't support yet because it's 18 months behind on the GNOME version. But as you can see, it is working. So if you want to play games on this, you can. It's just like, you know, if you do get met with some problems or some features missing, that is most likely going to happen if you are looking to play games on a Wayland session with, you know, those newer features that isn't going to be available on this distro. And those features, if you are looking for those features and you still want to use Zorin OS, that feature like HDR, VRR, screen tearing will be available in the next feature release of Zorin OS, which will be version 19. That's roughly 2 years away. So if you can wait 2 years, then you'll actually get those newer features. And as we can see here, here's another game, which is Elden Ring. It does work great. When it comes to recording it, for some reason, looks a little bit stuttery, but I don't think that's not a problem in the game. The game is smooth as butter right now. But yeah, another example of just another game just working out of the box. So I would say that gaming on Zorin OS is 100% possible, but of course, if you want those extra, you know, those newer Wayland features, and if you don't, let's say you have that Steam problem that I'm having, where you have to use Flatpak Steam, then Zorin OS isn't really, I would say, at least for me, I wouldn't use this for gaming at all. I would rather use this as just like a general like workstation computer for like, you know, browsing on the web, managing files, maybe doing some light photo editing or something, but I wouldn't be playing games on this personally. So one of the other things that Zorin OS tries to improve is the Windows app support. If you install the Windows App Support package, usually you can just search for it in here, and then you can easily install it in the GNOME software store. It will install two things. It will install Wine 10 for if you want to run just default applications, let's say something like Photoshop, or maybe you want to run some Microsoft Office app maybe, or something through Wine, or maybe some simple launcher. You can easily do that by running the .exe in your file manager with regular Wine. So for example, like Ubisoft Connect, we can go open with install Windows application and then go run anyway, and then it's going to create the Wine prefix, and then you can actually run the Ubisoft launcher and then install it, and it'll add it as a shortcut. So let's actually do this. We'll go click OK, we'll go accept, install, and then if we click next, we click finish. If we do check Wine, you can see Ubisoft Connect is now added as a shortcut, and it did create some shortcuts up here. I'm going to delete these. And if we click on it, it should run. But when it comes to playing games with something like Ubisoft Connect through regular Wine, that is not the way that you do it, because there is actual missing things when it comes to playing games under Wine. Things like DXVK, VKD3D, Wine dependencies that are needed to play games through something like Proton. That's why Proton exists. And you can just see an example here of trying to run Ubisoft Connect where there is obvious things that are missing with this application. Now, when you install the Wine app support thing, it also installs Bottles. Now, for some reason, Bottles is having some issues downloading some components right now. So I can't show Bottles properly because I can't install Ubisoft Connect within Bottles through its installer thing. It just sits there. I've been sitting for over an hour trying to get it to work, and for some reason it keeps failing to install some dependencies. So that's disappointing to see. So the other solution that Zorin OS does mention when you try to launch a .exe in a file manager is Lutris. Lutris is a pretty good Wine game manager, I would say. When it comes to setting it up, it's pretty damn easy. You can grab the Flatpak version. It's the one that I'm going to use, and that does mean if you are going to install games from an extra drive, you do need to use FlatSeal again to give it permission of that mounted drive so that you can install games on that mounted drive. So if you already have FlatSeal installed, you'll see a shortcut on the left side of here of Lutris, and you want to scroll down to File System and add the mounted path. So for me, like I said before, with Steam, my mounted drive is in Home, Linux Next, Drives, Extra Games, and then there's also a Games folder for another drive that is also mounted. Alright, as we can see here, Lutris is now installed. So if we do click open, we can start installing different types of game launchers. If you see on the bottom left here, it is downloading all the required dependencies for setting up Lutris. We can create a Lutris account if you want to keep your game library in sync. For me, I'm not going to do that right now, but you want to wait for all of this to download before you start touching anything within Lutris. And one of the things that Lutris decided to not download for some reason, I don't know why this hasn't been switched yet, but you need to click on download WineGE 826. And when you click this, it is going to not only download WineGE, but it's also going to download GE Proton, which is the actual runner that you want to use, not WineGE, as WineGE is archived. It's no longer being updated. So when you click that button, it downloads GE Proton. And then what we want to do after these are downloaded is go to preferences, go to runners, then go to wine, and then we're going to select GE Proton here. So we're going to wait a little bit for this to be downloaded, and then we'll come back and enable it. So now that GE Proton is actually installed, if we go to our runners, we find wine, we go to settings, and now we can select GE Proton as the runner. Hit save, and now the GE Proton is going to be used as the default runner because that has the latest patches for playing games on Linux and the latest patches for like game launchers, etc. So the next thing that we can do is install applications. Now the easiest way of installing game launchers on Lutris is by clicking on the sidebar of sources. So we're going to install Ubisoft Connect. And we're going to click this little profile icon here. So it says this service requires a game launcher. The following steps will install it. Once the client is installed, you can log into Ubisoft Connect. So we're going to click OK. It's going to launch a window. You can choose which script to install. You want to choose the latest one. So we click install. It's going to install it in this directory. You can create a desktop shortcut, an application menu shortcut, or a Steam shortcut if you want to. Click continue, click install. It's going to download the .exe for Ubisoft Connect. And now we basically want this to just install Ubisoft Connect. You can go and do something else, you know, go watch YouTube, watch something, go grab another coffee while this installs. And as we can see here, the Ubisoft Connect application is actually launched now. And as you can see the difference, it actually does load properly and it does look properly compared to trying to run it with just regular wine with what Zorin has. So I would say if you want to learn more about using Lutris or bottles, I do have a full guide for how to set up those applications on Linux, which I'll leave in the link in the description if you want to go watch that. So that's basically it for Zorin OS. I think Zorin OS is a good distro if you have older hardware and you know what you're getting into. There is some features that are missing like HDR and VRR. And then in the future, GNOME's going to be adding screen tearing. Those features are not included in Zorin OS. Things like the Steam issue I just had, that doesn't happen for me on my CachyOS install. I can use the system version of Steam and I have no problem. So I have to use the Flatpak one on Zorin OS because of that random problem that happens. Things like that where you might go, oh, that's missing, or oh, that has a weird bug. You can definitely use this if you're going to install on like school laptops, or if you're going to install this as just a regular workstation. You're not going to be playing games on it. You're just going to be browsing the web, watching some media. You're not going to be doing really anything crazy like playing games. You're going to do maybe some Photoshop editing type stuff, or, you know, graphical things. Those are 100% possible. And as you can see, there is a pro version if you want to get that enterprise software. If you're looking to install it, like I said, on school laptops, this is definitely a great distro for that, because you'll be waiting roughly 2 to 3 years for a new feature release of Zorin OS. And I do reckon this version of Zorin OS 18, they've done a fantastic job with the appearance, the animations, everything that is pre-included with the distro is really good. But again, for me personally, would I use this distro? No, I wouldn't. On my main machine, I would not use Zorin OS. On something like maybe my 2015 Acer laptop, yes, I would use Zorin OS because I don't need updates on that laptop. It's from 2015. And if you do have a computer that is from that kind of like era, and you are coming from Windows 10, this is a great distro for that. So if you guys did enjoy this video, definitely give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for 17,000 subscribers. I probably said this in the other like 3 videos, but thank you. I really do appreciate it. And thank you to my supporters. I'll show a text across the screen. Thank you for giving me money every single damn month. I really do freaking appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.